Welcome to Bond and Bondage Helpline, where we untangle human emotions. No safe word required. I'm Stella Black. Hit the like and subscribe buttons for your weekly glimpse behind the curtain of human behavior. Today, we're asking a big question. Why are some people naturally drawn to authoritarian figures or rigid systems of control? Is it just about upbringing, culture, politics? Not entirely. Recent science shows that the roots of authoritarianism can often be found deep in the wiring of the brain. So today, we'll uncover the neural circuits and chemical messengers that make some people crave order and others crave freedom. Defining authoritarianism. Before we dive into the brain, let's define what we mean by authoritarianism. This word gets thrown around a lot, but it has a specific psychological meaning. In short, authoritarianism is a worldview that favors strong leadership, strict rules, and the punishment of people who break those rules. People with authoritarian tendencies value social order and tradition, and they often view the world as a dangerous place that needs control and structure. Researchers have studied authoritarianism for decades, and they've found that it isn't just about beliefs, it's about personality and perception. It shows up in how people think, how they feel about outsiders, and how they deal with uncertainty. Some people are more tolerant of ambiguity, while others want clear-cut answers. Authoritarian thinkers tend to see the world in black and white terms, right or wrong, good or bad, with little gray in between. What's especially interesting is that authoritarianism isn't tied to any one political side. It can show up in right-wing nationalists and left-wing revolutionaries alike. What matters is the need for certainty, structure, and in-group loyalty. So, where do these needs come from? Let's look at the brain. The amygdala. Processing threats. One of the most important brain regions involved in authoritarian thinking is the amygdala. This small, almond-shaped structure is part of the limbic system, and it helps us detect and respond to threats. When you're walking down a dark alley and hear a sudden noise, it's your amygdala that kicks into gear, telling your body to be alert or to prepare to run. Studies using brain imaging, like fMRI scans, show that people who lean toward authoritarianism tend to have a more reactive amygdala. That means they respond more strongly to images of violence, angry faces, or anything unfamiliar. A study by Oxley and colleagues found that people with strong physiological reactions to threatening images were more likely to support authoritarian policies, such as the death penalty or military intervention. Interestingly, a 2024 UK study found that conservative voters tended to have larger amygdalas compared to liberals, possibly explaining their increased sensitivity to fear and social threats. The takeaway? If your brain is wired to see the world as dangerous, you're more likely to support leaders who promise safety, strength, and law and order. Anterior cingulate cortex. Dealing with uncertainty. Next, we move to the anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC. This part of the brain sits in the front of the cortex and acts like a referee. It helps us deal with conflicting information, resolve mental stress, and make decisions when things are unclear. In short, it helps us tolerate ambiguity. People with higher ACC activity are more comfortable with complexity. For example, if they hear an argument with multiple sides, they're more likely to say, both sides have valid points. But those with lower ACC activity struggle with that kind of uncertainty. They want a simple, clear answer. This is a hallmark of authoritarian cognition, intolerance for uncertainty and ambiguity. A study from the University of Toronto found that liberal-minded individuals had more active ACC regions when faced with cognitive conflicts, while conservative-minded individuals showed less activity and more discomfort with complexity. The brain, in this case, seems to guide your appetite for nuance. or your desire to shut it down and follow a rule book. Dopamine, the pleasure of conformity. Now let's talk about dopamine, the feel-good chemical. Dopamine is part of the brain's reward system. It helps you learn what feels good and motivates you to repeat it. When you eat your favorite food, win a game, or get a like on social media, your brain releases dopamine. But here's the twist. Dopamine also plays a role in social conformity. Studies show that when people follow group norms, especially in close-knit groups like religious communities or political tribes, their brain rewards them with dopamine. In authoritarian minds, this reward mechanism is especially active when they follow rules or support authority figures. It feels good to obey. One study found that people with higher authoritarian scores had greater striatal activation, a dopamine-rich brain region, when conforming to their group's opinions. This suggests that for some people, obedience is not just a duty, it's a pleasure. So while some brains crave novelty and risk, others crave the comfort and reward of fitting in and following the leader. Serotonin receptors and social control. Let's bring in another key player, serotonin. While it's most famous for regulating mood and being targeted by antidepressants, serotonin also affects how we deal with stress and interact socially. Two important receptors here are the 5-HT1A and 5-HT2A receptors. The 5-HT1A receptor helps regulate anxiety and stress perception. People with fewer of these receptors may feel more anxious or perceive the world as more threatening. This can lead them to prefer strong, protective leaders and strict rules. It's a way of coping with a constant sense of threat. On the flip side, the 5-HT2A receptor is linked to cognitive flexibility and openness to experience. It's even one of the receptors activated by psychedelic drugs, which often lead to feelings of unity and tolerance. Lower expression of this receptor has been associated with rigid thinking and discomfort with novelty, traits that strongly align with authoritarian personalities. So in a sense, how your serotonin system is wired might shape whether you lean toward order or openness. Childhood stress and epigenetics. Authoritarian tendencies don't appear out of thin air. For many people, they are shaped by early life experiences, especially stress or trauma. When children grow up in chaotic environments, whether it's from poverty, abuse, or unstable parenting, their brains adapt to expect danger. This activates the HPA axis, the brain's stress response system, which becomes hypersensitive over time. These kids often grow up with overactive amygdalas, low trust in others, and a deep need for control. They may develop into adults who see the world as hostile and unpredictable, and they often find comfort in authoritarian systems that promise stability. Epigenetics adds another layer here. Stress can cause long-lasting changes in gene expression, meaning your body and brain can carry the imprint of early trauma throughout life. These changes can affect neurotransmitters like cortisol, serotonin, and even oxytocin, altering how we bond with others, handle fear, and decide who to trust. Can you rewire an authoritarian brain? The good news? The brain is plastic. It can change. Just because someone leans toward authoritarianism doesn't mean they're stuck that way. Therapy, especially cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, can help people become more aware of their fear-based reactions and learn to tolerate uncertainty. Other interventions like mindfulness, exposure to diversity, and even guided psychedelic therapy, under medical supervision, have been shown to increase openness and reduce rigid thinking. What's key is creating safe environments where people can explore new ideas without feeling threatened. Brains that learn to feel safe don't need to cling to authority. Authoritarianism, then, isn't just a belief system. It's often a response to fear, uncertainty, and early stress. By addressing those root causes, we can begin to rewire the brain and build a society based more on curiosity and connection than on control. So, the next time someone demands total obedience or rigid rules, remember, it might not be just ideology, it might be neurobiology. Understanding the brain helps us respond with empathy instead of judgment, and maybe even build bridges where walls once stood. That's enough for now. Your scars might be on the inside, but scar patches come in all shapes and sizes. Find your patch and protect them with your life. See you next week.